See, you have quite a following, Mr. Wazy.
Madonna.
You deceitful, jelly-spine backstab. You could please get on with this. What did you say, Mr. Wazy? I can't hear you.
She sold a soft drink by lighting a match to the sacred in 1989. Like a prayer, ignited a cultural firestorm so fierce that Pepsi pulled a multi-million-dollar campaign overnight. While church groups called for boycotts, and the single still roared to #1. Was this blasphemy, or the moment a pop star claimed the right to provoke on a global stage? A few years later she went further, publishing Sex, a metallic, sealed manifesto of desire that was banned in multiple countries even as it shattered sales records and redefined who controls the female gaze. When critics begged for contrition, she climbed a mirrored cross on the Confessions tour, daring the faithful and the furious alike to decide whether pop can be a pulpit. And when a 2023 health scare sent her to the ICU, she rewired the plan, rescheduling a world tour and turning recovery into yet another act of endurance. Is Madonna a blasphemer, a liberator, or simply the artist who refuses to let anyone else write the rules? Born Madonna Louise Ciccone on August 16, 1958, in Bay City, Michigan, she was the third of 6 children in a devout Italian-American Catholic family. Her father, Silvio Ciccone, was a disciplined Chrysler engineer. Her mother, Madonna Fortin, was a gentle homemaker whose deep faith framed the household. When her mother died of breast cancer in 1963, 5-year-old Madonna's world split in two, the warmth of the church candles and the chill of unanswered prayers. That loss became the first wound she ever turned into art. At school, she was the odd one out, brilliant yet defiant, the girl who refused to shave her legs or bow to teachers. In her suburban Detroit neighborhood, where conformity ruled, she began to sense that rebellion could be a language. Music and dance became her escape. Her father remarried, but the stepmother's strictness pushed Madonna to rely on herself, training relentlessly in ballet. Dreaming of escape to somewhere electric and free, the discipline she learned under dance instructor Christopher Flynn, who also introduced her to gay culture and underground clubs, reshaped her sense of self and rebellion. By the time she was a teenager, the tension between faith and freedom had already written itself into her bones. To the outside world she seemed another small-town Catholic girl, but inside she was already planning a revolution dressed in lace and crucifixes. After graduating from Rochester Adams High School in 1976, Madonna earned a dance scholarship to the University of Michigan. There, under the mentorship of choreographer Christopher Flynn, she trained in classical ballet by day and explored underground Detroit clubs by night. Flynn urged her to embrace her difference, to treat her hunger for attention not as vanity but as vision. Still, academic life felt too confined for someone whose instincts pulsed to a drumbeat no syllabus could hold. In 1978, with just $35 in her pocket, she dropped out of college and moved to New York City, a decision that would rewrite pop culture itself. It was her first airplane trip, and when she stepped off at JFK, she later said, "It was the bravest thing I've ever done." She rented a tiny apartment in the East Village, worked as a waitress at Dunkin' Donuts, and danced with small companies to survive. She slept on floors, stole food from rehearsal halls, and used every hardship as training for resilience. Between auditions and part-time jobs, Madonna experimented with punk, disco, and new wave. She joined bands like Breakfast Club and Emmy, fusing performance art with raw street energy. Those early years were chaos, rejection letters, failed gigs, stolen demo tapes, but also transformation. In New York's sweat-drenched clubs, she wasn't just learning to perform, she was inventing a persona that could never again be ignored. The turning point came in 1982, when a DJ at the New York club Danceteria played her demo, Everybody. Within weeks, club crowds were chanting her name, not as a newcomer, but as if she'd already arrived. Sire Records signed her that same year, and by 1983, Madonna, her debut album, turned that East Village dream into a global phenomenon. Her rise wasn't gradual, it was an explosion. When Like a Virgin hit in 1984, paired with the MTV Video Music Awards performance in a wedding dress. Writhing on stage to the shock of Middle America, she became both icon and lightning rod. Conservative groups called it obscene, teenagers called it liberation. Madonna had found her formula: scandal as performance art. Each new era reinvented her. True Blue, 1986, gave her pop perfection and feminist edge. Like a Prayer, 1989, burned churches and boundaries, merging gospel with sensuality in a way the world had never seen. By the time Vogue, 1990, arrived, she was dictating not just what pop sounded like but how it moved, introducing underground ballroom culture to the mainstream and elevating marginalized voices to the center stage. Her control was total, over image, music, and controversy. She understood that in a media-obsessed world, outrage was currency. Each reinvention, the saint, the sinner, the dominatrix, the mother, the mystic, kept her untouchable. By the end of the 1990s, Madonna was no longer just a singer. She was a brand, a religion, and a mirror reflecting everything society feared and desired. Behind the lights and lenses, Madonna's love life became a second stage, one where romance and rebellion intertwined. Her first great headline affair was with actor Sean Penn, whom she married in 1985. Their union was volcanic: paparazzi chases, public fights, and a wedding dubbed the marriage of the century. But the intensity that drew them together soon burned them apart. Madonna once called Penn the love of my life. Yet their violent arguments and his arrests turned their love into front-page spectacle. The divorce in 1989 left her both bruised and unbreakable, and more determined than ever to own her narrative. Throughout the 1990s, her name was linked to figures across the creative spectrum: Warren Beatty, Vanilla Ice, Dennis Rodman, Carlos Leon, and later Guy Ritchie, the British filmmaker she married in 2000. With Ritchie, she found a semblance of domestic calm, raising their son Rocco and adopting David Banda from Malawi. For a moment, tabloids whispered that the material girl had found her spiritual balance: English countryside, family dinners, Kabbalah meditations. Yet stability never suited her for long. The marriage crumbled under conflicting ambitions and the weight of global fame. Ending in 2008, still, Madonna refused to let heartbreak define her. Each relationship, whether fleeting or fiery, became fuel for reinvention. Her romances weren't just personal, they were mirrors of her era: public, provocative, and unapologetically hers. If fame was her altar, then scandal was her sacrament. Few artists have provoked as deliberately, or as intelligently, as Madonna. Her first global outrage came in 1989 with Like a Prayer. The video's blend of burning crosses, stigmata, and interracial romance sent the Vatican into outrage and forced Pepsi to cancel a $5 million sponsorship deal. Rather than retreat, Madonna smiled. Controversy had become her marketing. Then came 1992, the year she detonated pop culture's boundaries. Her photo book Sex and album Erotica arrived like twin grenades: glossy, explicit, and defiantly feminist. Critics accused her of obscenity. Bookstores banned the book in multiple countries, yet it sold out instantly. She stood naked, literally and metaphorically, challenging a world that wanted to consume female sexuality but never see it controlled by the woman herself. But provocation came with backlash. By the mid-1990s, Madonna faced what she called her crucifixion in the press. She was branded vulgar, her music overshadowed by moral panic. Body of Evidence, 1993, flopped, and talk show hosts mocked her as a fading scandal machine. Yet, even her missteps fed the myth. When she kissed Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera at the 2003 MTV VMAs, she turned nostalgia into dominance, reminding a new generation who had invented pop rebellion in the first place. Still, the blows grew personal. Her devotion to Kabbalah, her adoptions from Malawi, and her plastic surgeries drew relentless scrutiny. Every reinvention was met with whispers of blasphemy or desperation. And yet, each time the world tried to bury her, she built a new throne from the ashes. For most artists, Such a storm of scandal would have spelled the end. But for Madonna, it was only the next act. The backlash of the early 1990s forced her to evolve, not softer, but sharper. In 1998, she emerged reborn with Ray of Light, an album that blended electronica with spirituality. Gone was the tabloid temptress. In her place stood a woman seeking transcendence through sound. The record won 4 Grammys, and critics hailed it as her artistic resurrection. It wasn't just a comeback, it was reinvention as survival. Through the 2000s, she turned personal growth into global spectacle. Her Confessions on a Dance Floor, 2005, era resurrected the disco heartbeat for a new generation. While the accompanying tour, complete with her being crucified on a mirrored cross, reignited old controversies with new purpose. She was no longer provoking for shock's sake, she was reclaiming shock as art, as endurance. Even when the public grew skeptical of her age-defying image, Madonna refused invisibility. She founded Raising Malawi, championed LGBTQ+ rights long before it was marketable, and outworked artists half her age. In 2023, when a severe bacterial infection sent her to the ICU just weeks before her celebration tour, fans feared the curtain might finally fall. Yet, months later, she returned to the stage, radiant, reflective, and unbowed. Her resilience had become her greatest performance, a decades-long lesson that pop culture may age, but rebellion never does. Today, Madonna stands not merely as a pop icon but as living proof that rebellion can outlast time itself. At 66, she continues to tour, to dance, and to provoke, though now with the wisdom of someone who has survived every cultural war thrown her way. Her celebration tour became both a retrospective and a resurrection, a kaleidoscope of 4 decades where each scandal, heartbreak, and reinvention stitched itself into her legacy. She divides her time between Lisbon, New York, and London, surrounded by her 6 children, Lourdes, Rocco, David, Mercy, and twins Asteri and Stella, each a reflection of her ever-expanding idea of family. Far from retreating into nostalgia, she experiments with TikTok aesthetics, NFT art, and underground fashion collaborations, constantly infiltrating the spaces her imitators now dominate. Yet the public remains fascinated, even unsettled. Is she a pop prophet or a relic refusing to fade? Her latest interviews suggest both humility and defiance, a woman who knows she's mortal, yet refuses to die quietly. When asked if she ever thinks of retirement, Madonna only smiles. "I'll stop when the world stops watching." And maybe that's the real miracle, not the controversies, not the reinventions, but the endurance of a woman who turned outrage into art and time into her stage. The question now isn't whether Madonna will shock us again, it's how she'll do it next.